Hey, it's Nick with Biophysics Essentials. Before this video starts, I'm going to go over the condensed results, since it's a video packed with data and detailed results. For this video, we collaborated with Brant Switzler, a professional tennis player and trainer, to incorporate our products into his routine and to monitor any changes in his performance and recovery. As a disclaimer, this was not a study conducted in a scientific setting with professional medical oversight. All data was collected using the Whoop wearable fitness tracker, which is widely recognized as the gold standard in the wearable market. The elements that Brant incorporated into his routine were molecular hydrogen, produced by the HydroGenie molecular hydrogen generator, our MicroBiome restored probiotic, and our X-Cellerator mineral supplement. The observation period was 53 days in length. The difference in data readouts before and after implementation of the new protocol is staggering. Dramatic improvements in Brant's resting heart rate variability, and Whoop recovery scores were seen overnight. This is shown here in screenshots from Brant's Whoop app before and after the night of June 27th when he started the regimen. In the observation period, his resting heart rate decreased significantly. His heart rate variability increased by over 45%, and his Whoop recovery increased by 52%. For an athlete who has trained at near peak for years, improvements such as these are rare. Brant has continued using the regimen after the observation period and has continued to see results, as can be seen in these screenshots from October, where his strain output is nearly maximal and his recovery is high throughout. I highly recommend watching the whole video, as there are many generous insights into Brant's training, incorporation of the protocol, and what he saw and felt after starting the regimen. Don't forget to check the description for links to relevant scientific articles, blog posts, products used, and information about Biophysics Essentials and Brant Switzler. With that said, let's get right to it. Hey, it's Nick with Biophysics Essentials, and today I'm here with Brant Switzler from Aboriginal Tennis, and we're going to go into some of his coaching, his techniques for staying fit and recovered on a daily basis through the competing seasons, and we're going to go into some changes that he made in his recovery and his protocols, and we're going to go into the results. So Brant, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your career?
So I started when I was about 5 years old with my dad. I was privileged enough to have a tennis court right in the backyard. He worked with some very solid players before me and sort of had an idea of what he wanted to do for my career, and it was always based around, being hungry and staying in the sport for a long time, basically. So playing competitively for a good long time, played my first tournament when I was probably like 8 years old.
Wow, that's pretty early.
Yeah, and again, it wasn't so much like you're gonna get after this for your entire life. It's you work your way into it, find a passion for it, and start working hard. And so I've been at it for a very long time. Played number one for my high school all 4 years. Got into Division I college and met some really great people that I've played with, all throughout my professional career after that, and early 20s, and still play, even now. So it's been at a solid level for a good long time.
And did you ever make the jump into professional tournaments?
I did, yeah. I played, tried to play professionally for about 3 years at the futures level. Basically, if you imagine it as the college system, Division I through 3, Division III would be the futures level. So had some good results out there, beat a bunch of good guys, and it was a great experience. You get to travel the world, you get to meet all kinds of different people, see all kinds of different cultures. It was fantastic, dream come true.
Yeah, I mean, I met you last year in August. You were playing tennis as the doubles partner for a mutual friend of ours. I went to school with him, and you still play at an incredibly high level. So how did you get into coaching, and what made you want to take the jump to the next level and bring other people into your philosophy?
It was a couple different pieces. Tennis, as of right now, is monetarily not the best pursuit, I would say, and so like so many other coaches, you're looking at how long can I stay out there for, what different pieces do I have to fulfill and people that I have to meet in order to keep competing, and so what I ended up doing was, okay, I'm going to look at coaching on the side, and you try to find that balance between getting out and playing and coaching on the side, and eventually you start getting clients and people who depend on you, and I take my job as that mentor, as that coach, as these different pieces extremely seriously, and that was always something that was present in my upbringing, from my dad, from all the coaches that I've met in my past, and that started to carry more weight as I picked up more people that I enjoyed working with, and so it just seemed like the logical next step to go, okay, you know, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like I've known that for a very long time. And so it was just, the passions began to switch from, you know, competing to, you know, I want to help people, and especially in the state of New Jersey where I've lived my whole life.
You've played, you know, for a very long time. You were in the D1 college
Sphere.
program, exactly, and you did play on tour. And what issues do you see in the tennis world as far as being an athlete in that world? And how do you, you know, see it progressing in the future, as far as like health and recovery?
It stems from the amount of time that you have to spend in order to become proficient, like just the proficiency, able to rally back and forth, and you know, wherever that takes you after that.
It's a very endurance-based sport.
It's an endurance, and like Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, where it outlines that basic rule of 10,000 hours into anything in order to become professional. You can invest 10,000 hours into a forehand and still lose 0-0 in tennis. You can spread it out across all the different strokes and still lose 0-0. It's the well is very deep as far as how much time you have to spend in order to become good. Because of that, injuries are so prevalent in our sport from overuse. There's, you know, anything from torn labrums and, you know, your hips and shoulders to wrist injuries. Many, if not all of my friends have had some kind of major issue in their body that they've had to overcome. Because of that, you have to focus on recovery. You need to put the hours in on court in order to become good. And that starts from a very young age. And so the expectancy is that the kids are going to have this level of maturity in their recovery and what they're trying to do, from, you know, ages 9 all the way up until college, maybe beyond that. Yeah, I mean, it can go very late, and that maturity level just isn't there. And so that has to start coming more from the coaches in our sport, because we've all been through this already. We know what to look for, the things that we should be doing, and yet that transition hasn't really happened yet in our sport. How essential recovery is, not just for staying healthy and keeping your body, you know, in a place that you can be.
It's ready to improve.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As well as performance facing as well. The more time that you spend out on court, the better you're going to be. And so it needs to be integrated much more in what's going on.
So I see you're wearing a wearable fitness tracker. Could you go into what the Whoop is, and why did you make the change to add this to your life, and what benefits does it offer you, you know, moving forward as a professional?
So what's measured is mastered. And so the Whoop is the piece that's taking all of my cardiovascular data on a day-to-day basis. So I can see exactly what I'm doing out on the court and how I can tailor the workouts to then translate into what I'm doing out there.
Gotcha.
As well as taking my recovery and everything, tracking my sleep, like these different pieces that before you sort of wake up and you say, oh, you know, I feel okay after yesterday's workout, or, you know, whoa, I'm really sore, I didn't sleep well, you know, my cat was keeping me up, like whatever it is. This takes all of that data and makes it tangible so I can see it.
And something that I found really interesting about the Whoop is that it's being used in many clinical trials for the COVID-19 vaccines, and it has very, very accurate sensors for heart performance and also the electrical impulses in your skin. So for tracking different sleep stages, you can get a very accurate readout of how your sleep stages you know, present every single night, and that's what Brant was talking about. So I had a chance to talk to a couple of your students today, and I was able to ask them a little bit about themselves and why they train here at Aboriginal and why they train with Brant. And this is what they had to say.
I'm Joshua Lai. I'm 15 years old, and I'm currently a competitive sectional junior from the Middle States area. I first encountered Brant and Aboriginal tennis at an event that a local club was having, and there was a couple other coaches there, but of all four of the courts, he was clearly the one coach that knew the most about tennis and the most about high performing. And after the event, I talked to him and things just kicked off from there. Before I worked with Brant, I used to get a whole ton of injuries. I had OCD in my knee, which lasted a year and a half. I was out. I've had multiple tendinitis. I've had a bunch of shoulder, arm, back problems, and I never knew why. I would only play 3 times a week. I had friends that were playing 5 times a week, not getting injured, and never knew why. And since working with Brant, I haven't been injured yet this whole summer, which is crazy. I've never gone through a summer without being injured, and I credit that all to Brant. And the reason for that is 1, recovery, and 2, just off-court fitness, and 3 is on-court, just how I'm playing, like the strategies that I'm using and how I'm moving on court. For 1, in recovery, I never used to do any recovery, maybe the classic like 5-minute stretching routine after, but since coming to him, ice bath, I've never done that before. I was scared at first, but a bunch of things from gravity boots, HydroGenie, ice baths, bunch of supplements, like everything came together, and I was feeling great after working super hard. And going from working hard, we would do all these fitness stuff that I never used to do. Maybe we'd have that on-court fitness where we'd run a spider drill like 5 times over, and then, oh, we did our fitness. But tennis specific, doing stuff with bands, weight, MMA, everything, it just got my body stronger. I was feeling better than ever. And then, including recovery, next day I'm waking up after this big day and I'm not sore at all, or barely sore. Whereas before I'd probably be injured. And then lastly, from the on-court stuff, I sometimes mess up, but I've been working on moving correctly. And from my knee injury, it was because overuse, and I think it's because I wasn't moving correctly. My knees were buckling in when I was running, and just little things like that he's helped me correct. And just from there, everything has come together, and I really look forward to working together with him in the future.
Hey everybody, I'm Nolan Shaw. I'm 18 years old. I'm a collegiate athlete at Emory University, where I will be competing for their men's varsity tennis team. So I met Brant at my old club where he had just become a new coach there. We had a couple sessions together, and instantly I knew that he was different from any other coach that I'd worked with in the past. For one, he had just finished traveling around the entire world playing professional tennis tournaments. And I knew that the knowledge that he drew from those experiences I could apply now in my game and 10 years down the road where I aspire to do what he did. Brant's philosophy is all-encompassing, so it's either you're all in or you're all out. And that goes for when we're on the tennis court, but even more so that goes for when we're off the tennis court. So basically everything that you're doing in your life has to revolve around getting better at the sport that we obviously love. The big part of that is recovery. Brant has introduced so many methods of recovery that I had never even heard of before starting to work with him. The hot-cold therapy, the HydroGenie, he was the one that made me get a whoop, because he would show me his data every single day, and I would always be amazed at how the different things he was doing in his own life translated to better recovery. And in a sport like tennis, it's almost more important what you do off the court than on the court. Because, as Brant likes to say, it's not about who's the best, it's about who can last. I look forward to working with Brant in the future. I think he's added so many valuable pieces to my game, especially now transitioning from the juniors into collegiate tennis, where I will be playing, no longer other kids, but grown men.
All right, Brant. So we're going to get right into the meat and potatoes here with, what you saw after implementing some of the products we've got here. Before we get into that, let's talk about, if you were compensated or paid in any way for using these products, or...
Absolutely not. Nope.
You were not. All right. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. So, you got interested in molecular hydrogen, about 6 months ago. How did it come up on your radar, and what made you want to try it?
Well, our mutual friend Freddie Marzinkowski, who connected us, started informing me basically about the stuff that you were telling him, and so I found out vicariously through him, because I'm always keeping my ear to the ground for new recovery methodology to implement into my training and my students' training, and so. It came up on my radar, and I was like, "Whoa, that's really cool! I'd love to know more about that." And then we met each other at the tournament, and talked a little bit about it. And I was like, "Wow, this is really great!" And then down the road, you reached out and wanted to come train and show us a little bit more about it, and I was so game and really excited. And here we are.
Yeah. All right. So there's a ton of research into molecular hydrogen. Clinically and in research journals, and it's a very mild antioxidant. So what it does is enter the cell, and it can neutralize free radicals, it can decrease inflammation, and all of those things can help recovery and have been shown to help recovery in several studies. This generator produces a mixed gas of 2 parts molecular hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. It's a very pure gas. It comes out about 850 milliliters a minute. So that's the source of molecular hydrogen you got for the test period. All your data was tracked with the Whoop wearable fitness tracker. We used the MicroBiome Restore Probiotic formula that we developed. And it's got a 4-part prebiotic system with 3 different sea vegetables and a very mineral-rich Leonardite. Along with the 26 strains of bacteria. You have a really good diet, so there was no concern for you about having, gut problems or a stress response, but it's best to just supply the bacteria with anything they might need, so it's a really great supplement for them. Since, again, research is connecting the gut with how your brain processes stress, you're under such a significant amount of stress every single day. Your strain is through the roof, and your gut will help you modulate that. The last supplement that we set you up with is the X-Cellerator mineral supplement. This is a trace mineral supplement. It's an electrolyte, and it's been engineered from an energetic perspective. So all the spin states have been modified so they're more bioavailable and can be taken up easily by the cells. So we'll get into each different component, but let's get into some of the results here. We got your Whoop data, and we pulled every single data point that's tracked by Whoop, going all the way back to October 26th of last year when you started. It's quite an extensive stretch that you've put in with the Whoop. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, a lot of hours on court and in the gym.
Absolutely, and it reflects here. So on the graph, all the way at the start in the October to February period, you can see in blue the heart rate variability, and the orange is your resting heart rate. So heart rate variability is the time between your heart rates, and that varies in milliseconds. So it's your heart doesn't beat like a ticking clock. It's not always the same. So the difference between the heartbeats in milliseconds, it determines how healthy your heart is, how more adaptable you are to just pick up and start your heartbeat increasing.
Yeah.
So a higher number, Whoop says, is generally better, and so we're going to go with that. And resting heart rate, the lower it is to a certain point, again, just like heart rate variability, the less your heart has to work. So a downward trend would be better for orange, and an upward trend would be better for blue. So in the October to February period, there's a 76 heart rate variability average in milliseconds, which is pretty good. I mean, you're a high-level athlete. That's right around average for a lot of high-level athletes, including endurance athletes and interval athletes. That doesn't surprise me. Your resting heart rate during this period was 60. And this makes sense because, again, it's pretty low for most people. It's at the high end of athletes, but it's during the winter.
Yeah.
So you're not getting a ton of long cardio. You're getting a lot more interval training. So your resting heart rate is going to be a little bit higher, and also you're going to be doing more intense work as opposed to more sustained work.
Absolutely.
So you're going to have to rebuild stuff. Now, I'm not a doctor, so you guys can take anything I say with a grain of salt. I am a biologist, so I'm definitely more on the research side. and that's why I find these graphs so fascinating. So why don't you tell people what you started here on day 81 of your data. This was May 19th of this year. You started the hot-cold therapy. What brought you to that, and how did you implement it?
Well, I'm always keeping my ear to the ground for new methodologies or methodologies that I just haven't heard about. Ice bath had been a part of my college career, and so I was already relatively familiar with the benefits of that, decreasing inflammation, getting more blood flow, pulling the stuff like lactic acid, calcium, those sort of things out of the muscle so you can recover more efficiently. Hot tubs have been around forever. I've known that, adding Epsom salt to hot water and sitting in that will relax everything. And then I saw a YouTube video that combined the two, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I started researching it a little bit more and found more of the benefits that from combining the two pieces of creating basically a pump. The cold tub pulls all the blood to your core, and the hot one, vasodilator, pushes it through the rest of your body. So it creates that pumping action, which makes hopefully the two systems that much more intense and make the muscles recover faster.
So there is some conflicting data and points of view and opinions on hot-cold therapy, but for you it has worked.
Absolutely.
And what we've seen in the data is you take a jump right around when you start hot-cold therapy in your heart rate variability. It's a lot more consistent. The variation day to day, it's a lot tighter of a pattern, and your peaks, you have higher highs, and your lows are higher as well. So it's a general trend upward.
Yes.
And that is something that I can see just from looking at this and analyzing the data. You can definitely see that. So after you started the hot cold therapy in your May and June period, your recovery went up to 50% from 40%. Your heart rate variability went up from 74 to 79 milliseconds. Your resting heart rate went up a little bit, but your strain during this period was extremely high. It was close to 18, and that's a logarithmic scale, 0 being no strain, and 21 being 100% of your heart rate for 24 hours.
Yes.
So it's pretty crazy. When you start getting up to the upper end of strain, it's a ridiculous amount of pressure you're putting on your body.
Absolutely.
So you got started with the hydrogen and with the supplements towards the end of June. June 27th was your last day without it. You started the hydrogen therapy that night. What are the methods that you used to absorb hydrogen, and how did it work out for you?
It worked out fantastic. Like you said, that month right before I got this was basically the highest strain that Whoop has recorded on a consistent basis for me. And as it ties into tennis, I was trying to experiment with, okay, how hard can I push myself for an extended amount of time? So this basically showed up at the perfect time period. At that point, I was just starting to really feel, dragged down a little bit. My recoveries were manifesting at a much lower level. The week leading up to it, I think I had 2 days where it was giving me in the 20s and 30s, which was brutal. That wasn't something that I had seen in the same week.
And how did you feel on those really low days where it's just crushing?
It was very difficult. I've got some high-level juniors, and as a competitor, maybe not so much as a coach, when they start beating up on you, it's something's wrong. So it was definitely something like I need to get more sleep, or
But I mean, during this period, you were getting a ton of sleep. You were getting 8.5 hours.
Exactly. You end up finding a place where it's like, oh, I need to do more. Where is that outlet? And that's what this turned into. Once I got it, I started drinking around 1.5 gallons to 2 gallons of the hydrogen water a day, sleeping with the cannula attachment overnight so I can breathe it.
You were inhaling it while you were sleeping.
Exactly, and then adding it and combining it with the ice bath, trying to take 2 hydrogen-infused ice baths each week. And as the data shows, got some great results out of it.
Yeah, I mean, from what I can see, this may be, just limited to you personally. There was no control group. This wasn't done in a lab. You just using your wearable tracker. But there is a significant change on the week of the 27th. So yeah, right around here at the end of June 27th, you started HydroGen, and your heart rate variability goes through the roof, which is very uncharacteristic. This is not something that usually happens with Whoop users. And your resting heart rate decreased significantly and then leveled off again. So initially, we see just analyzing the entire period, you've got a 76% recovery, which is 52% increase over your 50% recovery score of the May to June period. You had a increased heart rate variability of 115 milliseconds. That was a 45.57% increase. And your resting heart rate went down 5% over the entire period. But if you take out the 4-week period between the two tail ends of the data set, you get a substantially lowered heart rate of between 45 and 48. I see a pretty significant dip in this graph. What happened on those 4 days here?
I live in the boonies, and so there was a big storm, lost power.
Tropical storm?
Yeah, exactly. Big tropical storm that came up through New Jersey and took the power out for 4 or 5 days. And so all of these things that have been making my sleep so much better got cut out from under me, and it was a very difficult week, basically.
So in full disclosure, you sleep with a mattress pad,
the Uller.
the Uller, the cooling mattress pad. You sleep with air conditioning, and you sleep with the HydroGen.
Yeah.
So it could have been any of the above, all of the above, any combination that led to that decrease. But you definitely see a huge decrease in your heart rate variability that corresponds to the time you lost power.
Period,
You were carrying high strain during those days.
Absolutely.
What did you notice when you didn't have HydroGen or when you didn't have your air conditioning?
Definitely just overall all-encompassing decrease in any kind of athletic pursuit or mental pursuit, basically. Shot selection and problem solving and your ability to
predict.
Yeah, to predict. Like there's so many different pieces that come with identifying patterns and executing patterns and running around the court and getting your racket on stuff. It all dipped significantly in that time period. I definitely felt that my output was just overall worse as soon as this happened, and it manifests in different ways too, like moodier. A little bit slower to pick up on anything, not really having the energy to get out, not really having the motivation to perform. Like it was definitely all of these pieces.
Gotcha. So let's move on to the actual screenshots from your Whoop app, where you can see the relationship between your strain and your recovery. So this is the week before you started the HydroGen. You hadn't started the supplements yet. Walk us through what you're feeling this week. Your strain is very high, and your recovery
is very high. Yeah, you can see it where I made a conscious effort on both Sunday and Tuesday to try to bring what I was doing down to a manageable level, and it didn't work. The recovery stayed pretty low, and then right after I got it, we can see it here, jumped up big time.
So just one night with inhalation.
Yeah,
brought you all the way up to 72%.
Yeah, it made a very big difference. And again, you see it in the strain points. Nothing really changed. I'm still burning 4,000 calories a day. It's still very high level stuff. But yeah, the recovery just at that point, right after I got on the HydroGenie, jumped up.
Yeah, this is night and day to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fascinating. So this was right after
this is the best week ever.
Yeah. So the Wednesday after starting, you started Saturday night. Starting Wednesday, you had a 96% recovery, which is pretty much maxed out.
Yes.
And you set your personal best for green recoveries in a row.
7 in a row. Yeah, that was
which is insane because you're putting up ridiculous strain.
Very happy to see it. Yeah, that was a big transition point where it's like, wow, I can train for this level for an extended amount of time and still see that it's maintainable, that I'm not going to overtrain, that I'm not going to break my body down and hurt myself, basically.
So would you say, based on this data, that your personal recovery improved significantly?
Definitely. Felt it right off the bat once I got out on the court, and it's you start to see the game as chess. And grandmasters, when they play against each other, the moves are very quick in the first couple, and then they sit down and they think about the ones later on, and that analogy translates into tennis beautifully.
The pattern
because
recognition.
I'm seeing in those first couple shots like how I'm going to develop the point for later on, how I'm going to develop those points into a set, how I'm going to develop my sets into a match.
And that was harder for you to do before starting HydroGenie.
Definitely. With the amount of time that I was out on court, and it's rigorous.
And you can see it in the data. I mean, during this 1 week period, your heart rate variability was 119.
Yes.
Your resting heart rate average was 52. And just the week before, your average was 58 beats per minute, and your heart rate variability was in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
So I can see the difference. So this is the resting heart rate between the June 27th period and the August 19th, which is when we cut off the data. And you can see your heart rate drops from the high 50s down to around 50, and it sustains that for about 4 weeks. And then you have the 4-day period without power. There's a spike there, and towards the end it starts climbing a little bit again as well. So both tail ends of this graph definitely bring up the average. But it's interesting because after this period of time where your body, it appears fully rested, it appears that your body is catching up, you're pushing yourself harder, and your body's having to work a little bit harder again to catch up.
Yeah, it was very surprising to see those really high outputs of energy and then still see the resting heart rate stay down. That was very, very good. That was a nice feeling for me.
So this is directly from the Whoop website. I pulled this up yesterday and took a screenshot of it. And after 4 months, they say that their users average an increase of 8 milliseconds with heart rate variability, and their resting heart rate decreases by 4.4 beats per minute. And you saw both of these pretty much overnight, whereas this is something that happens over a long period of time, usually when you're tracking it and trying to improve recovery. This is your recovery graph, and you can see it stays pretty much linear throughout your usage of HydroGenie, and you can see the 4-day period again pulling the average down a little bit. But your recovery was very consistent between 60 and 90%, and obviously the average was 76%.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fantastic for the levels of
training. And that's by Whoop statistics, where it's you're in the green is what they say, and you feel it for sure. You feel like you're ready to go.
So this last slide I have shows the week where you did not have power from Monday through Thursday. You can see the strains are clustered over 18, and on Monday and Tuesday, and you've got Wednesday and Thursday, your recoveries are just all your recoveries are yellow or red, and your strains are still quite high. And then as soon as you get the power back, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, your recovery trends up very quickly. So there's definitely a correlation between you having electricity.
Absolutely, yeah. That week hurt.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what you noticed on low recovery days, because you're not immune to them. You can see on the chart you had some days where you were in the 50s, the low recovery days, even using the HydroGenie, even with the supplements, all the tools at your disposal. What did you notice, if anything, that was different on those lower recovery days as opposed to before you started with these products?
Yeah, so on lower recovery days, it manifests in a bunch of different ways, where against my college level guys, against my high level high schooler guys, it's so much harder to perform in point play against them. And what I mean by perform in point play, I don't mean like beating them necessarily. It's can I construct what I'm doing on the court with my shots to force them into doing what I want them to do, to make them play different things situationally so they can identify it. It's very important to me to be able to draw that out of people. Once I got out there with low recoveries, I'm making errors too early. I'm getting frustrated with myself. The practice isn't as fun. It's harder overall to get them what I want them to do. And from a competitor's perspective, I'm losing. Yeah. And so that doesn't feel good either. And then for the younger ones, when I got out there, and it's not so much about point play or situations within points, whatever it is. It's more about their technique and that sort of stuff, and that's like attention to detail, figuring out what's going wrong in a stroke. Maybe the finish is symptomatic of a late contact point. There's a lot of problem solving involved. That stuff slowed down a lot, where I'm having to look for longer at a certain stroke to realize what piece is missing.
Yeah, you're just slower. Like your performance is lower.
Definitely, and the motivation is lower too, because then when you're outputting so much with point play and using your energy and that sort of stuff, and then you have another 3 hours on court. This is a problem that so many tennis professionals that coach afterwards run into, where they try so hard to play points, and then they try to coach later on,
and
it's
can't
like
do it as well.
it's just like the motivation and everything, you're just dragging.
Gotcha. So after starting the protocol, did you notice that improve at all on your low recovery days?
Big time. Yeah, it felt nice because I can play points and everything, and be able to even see during the point, what's going wrong with technique. I'm able to look at all these different pieces at once. It's going from an ogre with one eyeball to a fly with a bunch of different eyeballs looking at the same thing, and being able to tie it all together into a nice package for helping the kids get better at the game.
So would you say that the improvements you noticed weren't just physical? Like it wasn't just
No,
your
it
body,
was
improving muscularity?
way more. It wasn't just that piece is cognitive. Like you just feel better overall.
So as far as the X-Cellerator, the mineral supplement, when you were training with this, did you notice anything in heavy training sessions? Because again, we touched on this earlier, you have a fantastic diet, you have a garden, an orchard, you've got a bunch of fresh vegetables coming in, so you're getting those micronutrients. What did you notice in heavy training sessions using this?
Where I felt like it translated the most was the days where it started getting really hot. We've had, leading up to this point, a very humid summer, and therefore I'm sweating a lot during the course of the day. I'm out on court probably 6 days a week, around 6 to 9 hours, and then doing workouts and stuff on top of that to keep myself healthy. When I was sweating a whole lot, this helped so much, because you feel drained, like that. It just takes something out of you by gaining and losing 3 pounds of water weight each time that you step out and you work. And putting this in my smoothies made that so I didn't feel it as badly. It was, I still got like that bit in the bottom of the tank that I can really draw from, instead of it being, man, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this next 2-hour lesson.
Sounds like you've had a good experience with it, and your results have really blown me away. I'm quite impressed with your hard stats, your recovery. Will you be continuing with the products, and will you continue to use the HydroGenie?
100%, yeah, absolutely. This has been incorporated into every day of training since I've gotten it, and if I could incorporate it even more, I would.
That's really, really great to hear. And yeah, I'm so happy we could work together. Really looking forward to working together in the future.
As am I.
Yeah. So this has been Brant from Aboriginal Tennis. If you guys are interested in any of the research that we talked about in the video, the links are going to be in the description below. Feel free to check out the blog and website for a lot more information. And, well, we'll catch you next time.